If you seriously asked me what the worst kind of comedy is in anime, the answer for me would obviously be the type of comedy where sexual harassment of any kind is treated as a joke. The kind of comedy where the consequences of harassing a person is a simple comedic slap in the face. This type of juvenile degeneracy is unfortunately normalized in a lot of anime, including some of the really good ones. But in this video, I wanted to take a look at another type of comedy that a lot of the times affect my viewing experience of a few shows. It's not that they're bad because of any juvenile degeneracy present in its comedy, but because of a few other factors which make the comedy feel intrusive to the whole experience. This is the comedy that I'm referring to, where the characters scream random things at the top of their lungs, while the character designs go off model in a derpy kind of way. I've been watching the second season of Demon Slayer lately, and this type of comedy that the series has was absolutely atrocious in it. For such a beautifully made atmospheric show like Kimetsu no Yaiba, moments like these have such a huge change in its tone in a very short span of a couple of seconds, and it completely takes me away from the entire immersive experience. Before people mention it though, I want to make it clear that I know comedy is subjective and some people might find this sort of humor funny. I completely respect the people that do. I'm glad that they got such a positive experience out of it. I'm just personally not into it at all, and I want to explain the inner details of why it doesn't work for me and the situations where it might somewhat work. Demon Slayer generally has a very intense atmospheric feel to the entire anime. It looks and sounds brilliant and it enhances the source material by quite a fair margin. I genuinely appreciate what Ufotable is trying to do with the series in general, but because of its amazing production values, the shift from that to its light-hearted gag moments is so jarring and it really feels try-hard at its comedy a lot of the time. Even from a more fundamental point of view, it just doesn't feel right. The comedy doesn't flow well at all and it feels like it's written just for the sake of trying to give the viewers a break from all of the action but in a very lazy kind of way. It just doesn't translate well from the manga to the anime. In the manga, these scenes are presented in very small panels, so it doesn't feel intrusive or important. You could find it cute and move on from that short panel. But in its anime form, you need to give it the screen time it needs if you want to adapt it faithfully. On top of giving it screen time, since the anime is cohesive in its tone, the sudden shift of the tone without any smooth transition is very noticeable, and we get a sense of awkwardness more than any of the humor that the series wanted to convey to us. It sounds like I'm just bashing the comedy of Demon Slayer, but trust me, I'm not. Watching Demon Slayer just reminded me how bad I personally think this brand of comedy is. It's present in so many action anime, including some of the all time classics like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and Helsing Ultimate. Even though Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is one of my favorite anime of all time, I couldn't stand a lot of its comedy. It did occasionally give me chuckles once or twice, but for most of its 64 episode runtime, it failed to amuse me for the most part. Helsing Ultimate is another perfect anime adaptation by Madhouse Studio, but like Demon Slayer, because of its amazing production values, these gags feel super out of place. I think it's not just because of its sudden change in tone that the jokes don't land either. That is part of the reason, yes, but I think the comedy in general is pretty bad for these scenes. Instead of trying to use humor in a smart, efficient way, comedy relies on the yelling of these characters and its derpy character faces for the sequence to be funny, and I don't think this sort of comedy works well for me. Take a look at a series like Gintama for example. Although it does have its misses when it comes to comedy, Gintama does a great job for the most part. Some of the characters are even loud like Shinpachi, but instead of using the yelling itself as a joke, The yelling is often treated as a punching bag of the comedy. And even when the yelling itself is the joke, the dialogues are still portrayed in an intelligent way for the majority of the time. I do think these types of jokes that rely on a character being loud or annoying can be executed in a charming way though. Or at least they can be portrayed in an amusing way, and that depends on the dynamic of the characters when there's a gag happening. One of the reasons why Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood comedy isn't as disliked as the Demon Slayer comedy, in my opinion, is because what Demon Slayer does poorly is that the receiver of the jokes in the series is generally passive as well. What do I mean by this? For example, when Zenitsu or Inosuke acts obnoxious, Tanjiro mostly acts passive, and that dynamic doesn't result in a joke. And since the dialogues aren't very funny, the over reliance on the voice acting and the character designs come into play. With Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, it's mostly Edward and his height jokes that are usually obnoxious, but the characters around Ed, like Alphonse, call him out for being annoying, and there's a fun dynamic between brothers that results because of it. Don't get me wrong though, I personally dislike the comedy in Brotherhood as well, but I can see why people find them fun. It also helps that the gags in Brotherhood aren't as frequent as in Demon Slayer either. I personally didn't like the jokes in Brotherhood, and it's mostly my biggest criticisms of the entire anime. With anime like Demon Slayer or Pandora Hearts or Helsing Ultimate, I feel like if the comedy wasn't there, the series would have been a much more enjoyable experience. I've bitched about my dislike towards this kind of comedy, but ending the video with just that point does not make for a challenging discussion. So, is there any other anime that does this brand of comedy well? I've thought about it for a good amount of time, checking my anime list, and from what I watched in anime, there were two shows that executed it in a great way. Well, actually, the comedy wasn't exactly like the ones in Demon Slayer, but it's close enough. They were Arya and Golden Kamui. But like I said, they don't use it exactly the way these other shows did. In Arya, the anime does do the derpy faces where the character designs go off model to evoke a certain emotion in us, but it wasn't humor that it wanted to convey to us like Demon Slayer and Helsing Ultimate did. Arya is serenity and peacefulness personified, and the series constantly convey that tone in its anime. When the character designs go off model, instead of changing the tone drastically, what Arya does is enhance the peacefulness of the show. It doesn't add humor to it or have any exaggerated voice acting. It's just there, serene, always embracing you more and more with its peaceful atmosphere. And it's also because of the amazing directing style of Junichi Sato that it was executed as well as it did. Golden Kamui is another series that does the derpy face scenes really well, but unlike Arya, it's still used to convey comedy, and it's personally absolutely hilarious to me. Comedy here is conveyed completely with its facial expressions, and they don't even speak at all for any of the weird situations where these derpy faces get used. And trust me, Golden Kamui has a lot of weird scenes. It's a more silent portrayal of the comedy, but with some really unique and crazy expressions that puts a constant smile on your face. The tonal shift in Golden Kamui might in fact be the best I've seen in anime and manga, and I'm still not sure how it was able to transition from one tone to another this masterfully. It requires a video of its own, so I'll keep it in the back of my head for now. On top of being actually witty and efficient in its comedy, during the derpy scenes there is no dialogue present, which I think make the jokes land better for me. The two examples that I brought up here aren't exactly the type of comedy that I complained about, but these are a few shows where the emotion that the creators wanted to convey to us gets properly conveyed. I don't think I've personally seen an anime that does this brand of comedy consistently well. But I do think there might be a few shows that I haven't gotten to watching yet. It'll be interesting to see what makes the comedy in that show special compared to the ones that don't work. If there are any anime with this comedy that do land well for you consistently, please mention it in the comments below. I do want to make it clear that I'm not attacking any of the shows here like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood or Helsing Ultimate or Demon Slayer. Comedy is a very small part in all of these shows, and the story shines in almost all other aspects. Shows like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and Helsing Ultimate are all-time classics that will be revered for a long time, and even Demon Slayer is a phenomenal anime adaptation that pushes TV anime in interesting ways. They're all interesting shows with a lot of heart in them, and the main takeaway that I wanted to bring up with this video is that I don't think these types of jokes are funny. They somewhat bring down the experience for me, and I hope authors and directors execute them better or remove it altogether. What do you guys think? Is this a hot take of mine? Do you guys get affected by this brand of comedy as well? Are there any other shows that did it excellently? Please tell me in the comment section down below. I'm genuinely curious to know what you guys think about this. And if you did find my perspective sincere and open-minded, and if you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching.